If you're anywhere near my age, these pictures on the screen right now look awfully like Mackie mixers. And that's because Korg has partnered with Greg Mackie and Peter Watts, MW here, that's Mackie and Watts of M&W Pro Audio, and they've got some hybrid analog digital mixers that they've been selling for a little while now, and they look really, really impressive. When I tell people that making these videos is a selfish endeavor, this is what I mean. I put out this video about what I thought was Mackie and Watts, Greg Mackie and Peter Watts' new company that were making these touch-based mixers that they're taking to Infocom. And of course, one of you commented on that video and said, "Oh, thanks God, I did not buy Korg MW yet," which obviously made me think to myself, what the heck's a Korg MW? Is that a Korg, Mackie, and Watts? Yes, it is. Greg Mackie and Peter Watts have been at it for quite a while, apparently, and they've got some hybrid analog mixing consoles that they licensed or sold, or I'm not really sure the details of their contract, but this is what trade shows are all about. I feel like after reading some of the comments on the last video, some folks are a little bit confused about how products come to market in the pro audio industry sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And people like Greg Mackie and Peter Watts have companies that design really cool things like mixers. And this is the same thing that we talked about in the Soundcraft UI mixer video, that those were developed by a really small company, and presumably they took it to a trade show or they shopped it around some other way to the manufacturers, and they got Soundcraft to buy that design from them. And that was a unique situation, if I'm remembering this correctly, because they also brought on one of the designers to continue to be the support person at Soundcraft for those consoles for some period of time. But this is what trade shows are all about. It's not always, or even most of the time, about companies showing off new products to the public. That happens at the bigger level. You know, the big companies show up and they set out these amazing looking booths and they debut products for the press and for the public and for everybody to see. But in a lot of the other booths at these trade shows are small design and engineering companies trying to sell their ideas and their products to whatever brand is looking for them. And a number of people pointed out that QSC has dissolved their mixer group. The folks that work on the touch mix and everything else to do with that are no longer at QSC, and that they're out of the mixer business. And in a lot of cases, those are exactly the types of companies that would license or buy a product like this off of a company like Mackie and Watts. You know, they're going to do the research and development to bring a product to the trade show that they can then sell and give you, a bigger company, in this case, Korg, that we're looking at, were able to buy this design, and presumably they had the supply chain dialed in on how to create these and actually deliver them at production scale. And that's what they're selling at these trade shows. Greg Mackie isn't just going to these trade shows just to show off his latest ideas. He's trying to sell them to whoever is looking to put a mixer in their lineup. And when I said in the last video that QSC needed to, pick up the phone and get a hold of these guys, I meant it. They don't have anybody working on the touch mix. As many of you pointed out, it's been discontinued, and they sold a ton of them. I know nobody loved them necessarily. A lot of folks that watch my videos especially, didn't have the best relationship with the touch mix, but they sold an absolute ton of those mixers for the better part of a decade, and they could easily come up with an agreement to bring that M&W design under their banner and start selling touch mixes again if they were so motivated. Usually that motivation just comes down to, can they sell them? And whether we like them or not, as sound contractors, they did sell an unbelievable amount of them. But we're looking at the Korg SoundLink MW2408 and MW1608. Those sound awfully like old Mackie product designations, and these kind of look like Mackie designs to me anyway. And you know, I talked with Chuck Augustowski, the A and APB, as he likes to say, a few years ago at one of these trade shows, and I asked him what he was looking at as the future and what to really keep an eye on in the next few years, and his answer was very confidently,
most definitely digital controlled analog.
So I don't know if I would put these squarely into the digital controlled analog camp, but they are certainly a hybrid, and that's what they're marketing them as, a hybrid analog digital mixer. You've got some really nice analog familiar mixer controls and layout that I think anybody could walk up to and feel comfortable working on. But on the hybrid side, you can now save settings for channel mutes, effects mutes, mute groups. They've built mute groups into this mixer. And as somebody who did wedding gigs back in the 90s on 1604, 1642, and 2404 and 3204 mixers, mute groups would have been absolute blessing. They would have been an amazing thing to have. So let's keep some perspective as to what's hybrid on these. I know a lot of folks watching this video are used to working on fully digital consoles where everything possible is available to you. But some of these features are a pretty big deal for the type of console that these look and feel like. Going beyond the mute groups, there are break settings, dynamics, graphic EQ, and feedback. I'm assuming there's some sort of anti-feedback processing again that you can assign at the bus level. Beyond the savable settings, they also have some recallable presets available, again, for mute groups, global scene memories, 24 different effects memories, 10 dynamics, 6 graphic equalizers, and then 16 or 24 channel mutes and 3 feedback bus assignments. There is a USB stereo input, and then they've also listed a recording port USB class 1. I'm not sure how many channels you can do. I'm assuming you could record all of the channels as direct outs. That would only make sense to me. And they're saying, unfortunately, though, that the sampling rate, while they've gone to a 24-bit bit depth, they've capped it at a 48 kilohertz sampling rate, which is slightly unfortunate. I'd love to see that a little bit higher going into the future. I know a lot of folks are now starting to work at higher sampling rates as a standard in their workflow, and I think these consoles would find a home in more studios and recording environments if they could do something to improve that in a future version of these mixers. Looking at the photos here, there are the 16 and 24 channel models. We've got the one knob compressor up top, followed by some EQ, some aux sends, an effects send, it looks like there, some pan controls, mute, assignment, and then PFL towards the bottom. So nothing unusual. And again, I think anybody could walk up to this with any sort of rudimentary understanding of how a mixer works and get some audio to pass out of this in whatever capacity you need, whether that's to a sound system or a recording system. Looking around the back here, we have defaulted to the old way of counting analog mixer channels where we've got a 24-channel mixer, but you'll notice only the first 8 channels are truly one-to-one on the mic inputs. And then after that, we've got stereo channels where you get 1 mic input or 2 line inputs. So on the surface, instead of the full 24 mic inputs, what we actually have are 24 channels, but only 16 microphone inputs, and I will give them a point back that they added a dedicated talkback input so you don't have to burn one of your channels to get a talkback mic at your monitor position or front of house. Those of you who are around my age will also notice a distinct lack of inserts. There are no inserts on these channels at all. In fact, there are no inserts whatsoever on the groups, the buses, the mains, or the channels. So that's, debatable whether or not anybody's going to care because they've added all that digital processing in at the bus level. You've got those graphic EQs and things I talked about a moment ago. But for a Mackie design mixer that looks so familiar, it's easy to not notice that we've lost those insert jacks. We've also lost the direct outputs on 1/4 inch that we were so used to seeing. And that's probably not such a big deal. Again, if that USB lets us record all of these channels as direct outputs, that would be great. And I really hope they do it as 24 channels as opposed to just 16, so we can break those stereo channels apart when we record them. But otherwise, 16 XLR inputs, you've got the talkback, a foot switch, you've got 1/4 inch connections for the mono and stereo inputs there, a pretty standard power input section here, monitor outputs on TRS, main outputs on XLR and TRS, group outputs 1 through 8 on TRS, 1/4 inch, and then aux outputs 1 through 4 on XLR. And I know everybody nowadays wants to see more aux outputs, specifically more stereo aux outputs. No matter what format or workflow the mixer happens to be, people need to be able to connect up stereo monitoring solutions for each musician. It's just become such a normal thing for a lot of folks nowadays that people are really looking for those aux outputs, and specifically ones that are easy to work with in a stereo linked fashion for in-ear mixes. It's just such a normal thing for people to be doing nowadays. I think they could do better on these mixers to accommodate that. And for pricing, I don't know if these have been just heavily discounted, or maybe they do have another generation of these coming out and they are discontinuing these. I'm not sure what's going on, but the 16 channel version is on sale right now for $500 only, marked down from $1,000. So that's a 50% off deal. And I really love the wood grain side panels on this. This is a good looking mixer, in my opinion anyway. And the 24 channel, which looks like it's unavailable, sold out at the moment, is normally at $1,200. So fairly reasonably priced mixers considering everything that is included. But as always, I'm dying to hear your opinions and experience. But if you've used one of these or thought about buying one, or if you have one currently, let us know what you think about them and what we don't know about them that we should know. I always love to hear your input. And as I said earlier in this video, it's super selfish that I make these videos at all because I learn so much from you. I'll see you here next time.